Good morning, everyone. It's the 5th of June. My name's Alistair, MD and partner at Stable. And today I'm joined by Andrew and Liam from Sustainable Grid Tech. And we're going to be talking about their business. We're going to be talking about energy costs, energy tariffs, and the various tools and functions that are out there to help you get on top of these costs. So, Andrew, Liam, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for getting us on, Alistair. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for inviting us on.
Amazing. I guess to start with, it'd be useful to get a bit of background on obviously the company that you guys are running, and maybe obviously your backgrounds beyond that from a personal capacity as well.
Cool. Yeah. So Andrew King, owner and director of Sustainable Grid Tech, or SGT. I fell into the energy business about 4.5 years ago. Someone introduced me to a network marketing business that focused on domestic utility provision. And in conversations that I was having with prospects, with that, I had lots of people ask me about commercial energy. So I started to explore that. I'm the type of individual that has to know stuff at quite low level detail, because I can't stand people asking me questions that I can't answer. And this is an Andrew problem, nobody else is, right? Because it's perfectly acceptable to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you. But not for this lunatic. So I did a deep dive into commercial energy, and I saw there, a big opportunity. And just over, nearly 2.5 years ago now, I managed to leave the corporate space and focus my time, in the utility space, both commercially and domestically.
Nice.
Similarly, I was introduced to the residential utilities market around about the same time as Andrew, through the same business model, and it was very exciting. Largely built my business through formal and informal business networking, and was being increasingly asked, Liam, can you have a look at the office space? Can you have a look at the hotel? Can you have a look at the takeaway, the nursery school, whatever it might be? And needed to find a way to say yes. It's absolutely fantastic helping people domestically, and it makes a real difference. But sometimes for businesses, it was going to be the difference of keeping the lights on, keeping staff employed. And over the last couple of years, had worked with various brokers, I suppose. But Andrew and I's relationship through our residential business sort of became more fruitful. And seeing what SGT were doing, I don't really like this phrase, but it became a bit of a no-brainer in that it's not your traditional brokering. We're looking at real energy cost saving solutions. And this will be a line that comes out from both of us throughout this, I'm sure. But any broker really can go and find a cheaper unit rate, depending on what the market is offering you. But the cheapest unit rate is the unit that you don't use at all. And that's really the lifeblood of what we're doing at SGT. How can we reduce your energy consumption? That is going to show you the biggest savings. My background has been in local government. Posh way of saying I work for the council. If I'm honest, it's the energy company, council.
You're a big man.
Yeah, I've got very few friends, to be honest with you, with those two. But it has exposed me to that government-led world, and the bureaucracy and the red tape, and actually wanting to push through and just making a difference for people, for individuals, for businesses, and what that means. This is a really exciting time to be in the energy space, not least what's going on in the world right now. So, came with Andrew as an associate partner.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I was thinking back to when Russia invaded Ukraine, which feels like, in some ways, it only feels like a few months ago, but it must be at least 3-4 years now. And the cost of energy spiked then. We've obviously got the Strait of Hormuz closed at the moment, which is causing a massive amount of pressure on the commodity market. So it's it doesn't feel like it's going to go away with the best will in the world. This type of conflict that we live in at the moment, or escalation of key choke points. If you've ever read Prisoners of Geography, It's a book around looking at the way countries are situated based on their geography, so borders. I think the book's about 10 years old now, but it's fascinating. If you read it, it predicted Russia invading Ukraine. It's predicted the conflict in the Middle East and the squeeze that it's going to have on or the choke points it's going to create in the energy infrastructure markets. It's really timely that we talk about it today. And the first discussion I had with you guys, Liam, you just highlighted it there. Going and finding a new provider is, a relatively straightforward process. Same as someone going to find a new banking partner or changing their internet provider. Like there is a process to it, and there's a whole marketplace built behind it. But as you said, actually the real key is to work out, how do we reduce the consumption, how do we become more efficient? And it's quite easy for us to say that around the home, turn off the lights, but when you've got complex businesses with complex machinery and customer demands or supplier demands, it's not a straightforward task. And in reality, you would probably need to hire someone to come in and sit there and be an analyst. Go, right, here's where all your energy consumption sits. This is where we can turn things off, and it would be a full-time job for them to go around and be efficient. And it'd probably also be a real pain in the ass as well, because you'd be working on something, and this bloke's going to turn up and just turn everything off. So the reality of that doesn't exist. And this smart, do you call it the smart switch that we spoke about?
Smart socket. Yeah.
Smart socket, that concept makes a load of sense. So it'd be great for you to tell me and whoever's watching this a bit more about the smart socket and how it works.
Yeah, sure. So we talk about sustainability. I'll just deal with that bit first. I don't come at sustainability from a kind of green warrior perspective. And yes, that stuff's very important because we do have a warming planet. I approach sustainability from the basis, if I can help a customer consume less and perhaps generate some themselves, they become much more sustainable as a business, right? Liam stole my tagline, which is, the cheapest green.
Mate.
Yeah, exactly. The cheapest, greenest kilowatt hour is the one you don't consume, right? Smart sockets, a brilliant concept. Manufactured by a company called Measurable Energy. A smart socket, simplest description is, imagine in your organization, your most diligent employee that walks around your premises turning off stuff that doesn't need to be left on. So in most commercial settings, about 40% of the overall electricity consumption in an organization comes from plugged in devices. Computers, monitors, fridges, copiers, etc., etc. Of that 40% spend, waste about 50% of that consumption, which is a big number, right? So if you can think of your office, which sits 150 people, you've got 2 monitors each, that's 300 monitors that are basically left on 24/7, 365, right? So what a waste that is. And we can all send out memos, emails, put notices up that says, please make sure you've turned everything off. And that'll work some of the time, but never all of the time. And once we've been through a short period of reminding people, we'll forget to remind people, and then the habit will revert to norm where everything's just left on standby. The way that the smart socket works, so they're internet connected and they're managed by a back-end platform that uses both AI and machine learning. We may set up some rules initially. Okay, so what we're literally doing is we're changing the socket hardware. All right, so you'll take off the old faceplate and put a new one on. We may set some rules in our organization that says everything that's plugged in into these sockets. So let's assume that these are all PC monitors for the minute. We're going to set a rule that says this business works 9 till 5, and some people come in a little bit earlier and stay a bit later. So we're going to set a rule that says that stuff is off from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. Right? So we've reduced the on time by 50% straight away. Okay. Now we say that they're smart because what you wouldn't want to happen is somebody sat at their desk working away and then suddenly the power goes off. Right. So the system recognizes the different electrical draw from a device that's sat in standby to a device that's in use. So, Alistair, you're still sat at your desk working. So it gets to 7 o'clock and it goes, right, everything turned off. And then the system goes, oh, yes, but Alistair's still working. So we'll leave his one on and we'll turn off all the others around. Similarly, you choose to come into the office early. And of course, everything's going to be off. You do have the ability to override that off. You just push a button on the faceplate and that will power up your workstation again.
Just Andrew, on that point as well. So I'm assuming sort of heavy machinery based plant businesses, if they've got shift workers coming in, and some of the machines need to be warming up or going through some sort of pre-work routine. That smart concept, that's programmable, right? So
well, industrial plant we don't deal with yet. We're dealing with specifically items that are plugged in either with a traditional 3-pin plug or a fused spur.
Makes sense.
Those are the devices that we're targeting at the moment. We do have some clamps that monitor consumption from other devices, just so that we can see the overall consumption picture in an organization. But we don't yet manage those, and to be fair, industrial plant usually is fairly binary. It's either on and running or it is switched off and not consuming.
This is typically office space, hotels, that kind of industry where if something is not in use, it doesn't need that draw on power, isn't it? That's where we are at the moment.
Yeah. So the process is we'll come and do a survey on site, and we're really looking for all of your plugged in devices. So we're looking at desktop PCs, we're looking at monitors, televisions, fridges, printers, copiers, microwaves. The biggest sinner of all for stealing consumption is your hot water tap. Right, the thing we put in for convenience for people to make their teas and coffees. They're incredibly expensive to run. And they're sucking power up 24/7. All right. So we'll do that survey. We'll then run that through a calculator because we know what those devices typically consume. We'll put in the customer's unit rates for kilowatt hours, and we run a calculation that says, well, based on what we've seen here, we think we can save you N £1,000 a year. Return on investment typically is under 12 months. I see stuff in 4 or 5 months very regularly.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about that, so whilst we're going to set a bunch of rules up based on times and expected behaviors, the system's actually monitoring what's going on. And will be making suggestions through machine learning. It says, actually, you've got a set of sockets over here that you're only turning off for 12 hours, but actually they're only ever used between 1 and 3 p.m. So we could change the rule, right? And for organizations with multiple sites, where over the weekend everything should be off, for the nerdy amongst us, you could look at your platform and you could see, oh, there's something on there that shouldn't be on, and you can turn it off from the luxury of your deck chair on the beach, which is a pretty cool thing. So a couple of strong usage scenarios. So I'll give you an example of a hotel first. So one of my customers is a luxury hotel down in the southwest, 70 rooms. Being a luxury hotel, there's quite a lot of stuff running in each of the rooms. So we have air conditioning, we have a fridge, we have a television, we have underfloor heating on a fused spur, and we have a heated towel rail on a fused spur. So that stuff's all switched on, whether the room's occupied or not, right? And it's rare for hotels to run at 100% occupancy. So we've installed smart sockets there, the basic rule is the platform talks to the booking system and says, "Is this room booked?" And if the answer comes back and says no, everything's powered off. Now, we do have 2 little bursts of air conditioning throughout a 24-hour period just to make sure the room stays fresh with air and stops any damp building up, so forth. But other than that, everything is switched off. So when the question comes, is this room booked? And the booking system says yes, we'll ask the question, how many nights is it booked for? And then on the day of check-in, the room is powered up at 1 p.m. So that, the towel rail, the underfloor, the AC has all got opportunity to work. The fridge is starting to cool down, ready for the customer who can check in as early as 3 o'clock.
Yeah, nice.
So and then we can also do some more downtime at sleepy buys, right? And people are snoring their heads off. We don't need to leave the television in standby. We could steal a couple of hours. Things like drinks fridges in the hospitality space. Think of all the bottle fridges that we've got. So we're not talking about food fridges. We're talking about, behind the bar. Well, you think those fridges are on all the time. We could probably steal 4 or 5 hours without losing a great deal of refrigeration. And it's just a great way of saving a lot of money. So this particular hotel consumes about 1 million kilowatt hours of electricity a year, and we're going to reduce that by about 20%. So a saving roughly per year of about £90,000 for an investment of less than half that, with an ROI of, I think, about 4 months.
And once that savings been established, you're then, as you've just described, you're creating a framework for them to maintain it. It'd be a bit like, like learning, like becoming very competent at a sport. Like once you've got that skill set there, you understand how you maintain it. And obviously, there's a risk of them relapsing if they aren't keeping an eye on it. But that's the whole point: is creating that framework, the visibility.
So one of the questions that customers ask, and rightly so, is, well, how can you guarantee our savings? And the simplest answer, Alistair, is I can't guarantee your savings unless you put me in charge of your settings, because I can't tell you what to do if you're changing stuff. So with this particular customer, the onus is on me and my team to ensure that we're maximizing savings. We're actually not going to give the customer access or admin access to the dashboard. They can see real-time reporting, but the way that we've constructed the deal, it's on me to make sure it's right, and we're paid appropriately for doing so. But that's the point. We can't guarantee how an organization is going to behave, right? So our second use case that I'll talk about is schools. It may or may not surprise you that for lots of schools, a lot of their IT hardware, things like their smart boards, their notice boards, which are on television, their PC monitors, go in the IT suite, for example, that stuff's left on 24/7, and a typical state school, I think, is probably empty for 16 weeks of the year, something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my boy's off on half term every few weeks at the moment.
Yeah, right. So imagine
half month. Yeah.
Imagine for those 16 weeks of the year, you go, well, actually, I'm going to turn all this stuff off. Things like hand dryers in toilets draw electricity when they're not in use. So they have the ability to turn all that stuff off during holidays in particular. Big holidays, weekends. Schools have a relatively short business day. Teachers in probably 8-ish, and probably leaving 5-ish, something like that. It's a terrific case. I did a survey recently. I think there was 500 and something plugged in devices. things like the printers and the photocopiers are just left on standby.
Yeah, and they
Um,
do the they kind of do a bit of a whirring exercise every so often,
yeah, yeah,
just to keep themselves ticking over.
and when you're talking about state schools in particular that are limited on budget, um, to provide them a low cost solution to save. I mean, this school, I think we're looking to save them about 30 grand a year, which is a lot of money,
Yeah,
for an
and we put it
investment of
straight back
about,
into the school, right?
well, an investment of about a third of that. You know,
Yeah,
now
It becomes cheaper in scarce then.
lots of schools and local government have a policy of invest to save, but they're restricted on the amount that they can invest. So I've seen scenarios where a school has invested in solar, for example, but they've got like 8 panels because that's all they can afford. But no, but the smart socket I think is an absolute diamond piece to say, and the way that the stuff is structured is year one you're going to pay a license fee and you're going to pay for your hardware and the installation, and then year two you just pay a license fee per socket.
yeah.
Uh,
Schools it's really interesting because the I was chatting to a friend who's a bursar at a school in South London, and the increase in, or the addition of VAT to fees has effectively put more pressure on state and grammar schools because they're having to suddenly pick up all the additional overflow
yeah,
from children that aren't going to independent or private schools, and therefore the cost has gone through the roof. So there's a play there around how do we how do we help them save money. You mentioned things like solar as well. It's just there's so many areas that schools can look at, but they need that structured support.
yeah,
One thing we're speaking to schools at the moment is around liquid cash within the school and making sure that it's being used properly. Similar to like an energy consumption perspective, there's a lot of big tier one banks out there in the UK who will gladly withhold 2.5% of interest because their business savings account is as good as they offer, and it might be capped at 1%. And at certain points of the year, some of the schools are more cash rich, and that money is quite literally being burnt away by not being in the right accounts. But it's the flip side, obviously, with the private and independent schools, they're they're seeing attrition of children, and therefore fees are down, so they need to go on a massive drive to be efficient. And the fact it can all play back into education around being sustainable and how it works for a school to actually show that to the kids and be part of their program is a really nice thing to do, rather than it just being a theory. Something we learn about classroom. The teachers and the principals can talk about it in real terms.
yeah. So another thing that we talk to people about beyond smart sockets is solar. Now, the challenge that many organisations face with solar is massive capital investment, and capex. For lots of organisations, can be challenging to find. And when you see return on investment times with solar be bullish 4 or 5 years, but more realistically 8, 9, you've gone and spent 300 to half a million quid to not get your money back, for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. It's a long time, right?
Mm,
And will put off a lot of organisations. But there is an alternative, and the alternative that we present is what we call solar as a service. So whereby we'll come and do a survey. Typically, you'll be an organisation consuming north of 150,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year. The premise is we will install and pay for and maintain a solar array on your roof. We will design the array to maximize your consumption of that energy. We don't want to overproduce. We don't want it going back to the grid because that's a waste. We want the customer to be consuming everything they generate as best as we can. There is nothing for the customer to pay other than to pay for the electricity that they consume. So what's the deal for them? Well, the deal for them is that we're going to be selling them the electricity that we generate from those solar panels, but at a significantly reduced rate. So currently in the marketplace, we're looking at 24, 25, 26 pence per kilowatt hour. For a massive user, we could be down as low as kind of 9 or 10, but we're certainly looking at 15, 16 pence a kilowatt. So, a very significant cost reduction.
Yeah.
But also,
Would they be able to do that on a contract for more than a year?
yeah. So it's delivered via what we call a PPA, which is a power purchase agreement. So the installs are all funded, by us and the solar provider. The customer gets put into a long-term contract, and by long, I mean a minimum of 15 years, and some of them can go up to 30 years. But what's cool about that is the price that we lock you in today. In some scenarios, actually remains your price for the duration of the contract. So your savings over time grow exponentially. So if you think
Pounds, yeah.
a kilowatt hour that you purchase today at 25 pence, in 15 years' time, compounded, it's probably going to be costing you 50 pence. Well, if I've started you off at 15 pence today, the options are it could even still be 15 pence in 15 years' time, or it goes up at a much lower rate. And I've done some models in recent months where there's a small increase each year, but within the 15 years, it still hasn't got up to the 25p. It's still under 20p, for example. So those savings over time get larger and larger. The delta between the market price and the price that you're paying gets larger.
Yeah.
But the customer also gets the benefit of being able to claim all the carbon reduction stuff, as part of their required reporting. So if they're a large manufacturer, for example, so they can reduce some of their levies, they can get additional funding for what they're doing with carbon reduction. So it's just a simple win-win.
I think that will become more relevant for companies. So we met someone who was in the construction and the purchase of land and construction of enormous warehouse facilities, and part of that business model is making sure that they have an ESG module to sit alongside it, because, as you know, building a massive, great big warehouse somewhere involves a lot of energy consumption and potentially destruction of lands. And one of the products that we help companies with is earning interest on spare cash, and it can be done through a fixed term fund. And one of the providers has a dedicated fixed term fund pool, which are all from ESG compliant, either banks or government bonds, and for them to have that ability to say to their board and investors, we're able to put money into an ESG compliant fixed term fund that's going to pay out 4-5% interest over a fixed term. It's just a nice sort of round robin to go. We're earning more interest than the bank's going to pay us, and we've ticked that box of showing our investors, shareholders, that we've hit our ESG grading for the year. Very interesting. The surveys that you guys do for the smart sockets, that type of thing, how are they typically done within a day or a few hours, or are they quite?
Yeah, so the big school I did recently took me about 3 hours. Schools, there's a lot of repetition in a school. The classrooms, for example, tend to be the same. So I've just got to make a note of how many of them there are. We do a very kind of quite detailed structural diagram. So we do by floor, area, room. Now I'm able to duplicate rooms, so that's usually what I do. But I could be on floor 2, and there might be 8 English classes, so I might go English 1, and then do what's everything in there, and then I'll clone that room and rename it English 2, and etc. etc. All the survey stuff that we do from the exploratory perspective, that's all free. We don't charge for that.
The school I went to had a kiln for drying clay. I dread to think how much energy that was drinking.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to go and see him.
Yeah.
I can't remember how much. I mean, it has to be. It was hot enough that you knew when someone had opened the door. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's probably similar to a blast furnace at a steel mill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just over the half an hour mark. So I think, Liam, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add in. I think that's probably a nice place to wrap up.
No, just as I said, this is such an exciting space to be in right now, and the real wins for businesses are the energy reductions. It's no longer chasing a unit rate. It's no longer treating your energy as just a fixed cost, something that we have to pay. Yes, you will have to pay it, but let's use less of it, and you're going to see significant savings that, as you guys well know, you can invest into other areas of the building. You can keep staff on. You can um, you can grow this business that much further with these significant savings that you save through looking at your energy more strategically, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Can I just give a little bit of market insight for about a minute?
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be
Because
great.
you'll have listeners and viewers who will be looking at, you know, the current costs and the volatile nature of the energy market because of what's going on in the world. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. I mean, lots of people don't appreciate that a lot of our electricity is generated by lighting gas, and gas doesn't get distributed around the world in pipes. It gets distributed around the world in tankers. But there will be lots of people currently who have a renewal coming up in some months whose tactic might be wait. Right? My advice is don't wait. Do something. Now, future pricing forecasts at the moment are really strong as we go into 2 and 3 years out. Right? The pricing looks very, very steady. Very short-term pricing, i.e. over the next 6, 9, 12 months, looks a bit scary. But if you can look a bit further ahead, do so. But my single biggest piece of advice, don't wait, do something. What happened when the Ukraine conflict started? Pricing went through the roof, like bigger than we've ever seen. I sound like Donald Trump. And people were waiting. And they waited and waited and waited. And if you keep waiting, you get to a point where you get to what you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? You've just got to take what's there. So don't wait. Get in touch and we can help you do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I echo that sentiment. We do a lot of hedge analysis on things like interest rates. So you might have a business coming to the end of a loan term and they're waiting to see, same as the mortgage market, people are sat around waiting to see, same as FX, people waiting to pay suppliers overseas thinking I'll just wait a few more weeks because the dollar's looking quite good. All of a sudden things as we know, things suddenly take a turn for the worse, like the Kuwait airport being hit yesterday or Wednesday. And a fatality, probably the biggest escalation we've seen in weeks, and yet the market's sort of looking the other way, just pretending like it didn't happen. So it's geared very oddly at the moment. It's sort of trying to make sense of it is tough, but yeah, leaving it down to chance or wait and see mentality, as we've seen over the last 5-6 years, is it's super high risk, and businesses don't need that risk right now. If you can control it, have the conversations, and get on top of it, then you'll be in a significantly better place. Even just peace of mind. We've got clients.
Well, you can budget against something you know about, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, and so one of the first things I learned when coming into the commercial energy space was, if you see an energy price and like it, buy it.
Simple as that.
It is that simple.
It's great. Yeah. It's a great strategy. Excellent. Well, Liam, Andrew, thanks so much for coming on. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, good fun, that. Yeah.
Actually, there's one more bit I was going to ask. For someone, direct customers speaking with you guys makes sense. I presume if someone was interested in becoming an affiliate or a partner, for you guys, be good to have a quick overview of how that works.
Yeah, so we have differing flavors. You know, some people are introducers. You know, they're literally not involved at all. Just go, hey, Jimmy, meet Freddie. You know, and we usually give them, you know, an envelope. You know, just a tickle, if you like. Or if someone wants to be involved in the relationship and wants to be actively involved in the sales cycle with our support, you know, we have a range of kind of commissions available to people. Clearly, we're limited by the margin that's available in any deal. And the amount of margin we're allowed to make in an energy deal is limited. Most of the providers will limit the amount of money you're allowed to make and the amount of margin you're allowed to put on. But yeah,
which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. And that protects everyone. But that's also it's also immediately transparent. So when I send a proposal to somebody, in that proposal, in its terms and conditions, it will clearly state the commission being earned on that deal. So it's not a secret.
And that needs to be a word of warning to anybody who is looking at the marketplace. If that isn't abundantly clear on what you've been sent through, that's a warning sign. It really is.
Yeah.
Deal with somebody who's
That's good advice.
transparent.
Yeah, I think that's the whole brokerage world has got such a bad reputation because of a few bad actors that are skimming or adding unsustainable margins onto deals that aren't obvious to the end customer. So I think, it's a great bit of advice. If it's not obvious what you're paying or the cost of it, then yeah, come and speak to you guys as a sense check.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant.
Lovely.
Well, guys, have a great weekend. I will speak to you soon, and thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Alistair.
Cheers. Thanks.